So in today's interactive session, we're going to follow a different pattern of the whole meeting. So I will introduce the different topics at which the presentations would happen. And based on the topics, you can already raise hand and we'll give you a piece of paper and you can already start writing your questions, because all these topics are something very familiar and you might already have a lot of questions in your mind. So you can already write them. So the pattern of writing is, please mention the title at which I'll be mentioning. Please mention the title, and only based on that specific title you can write questions. If you have questions related to a different topic, please take a different piece of paper, mention that topic and write your questions. So we will be collecting all the questions you'll be writing, and on spot, after each presentation ends, the papers will be handed over and they'll be answering the questions. So I'll just give the different topics at which the presentations will be going on. So we'll be having topic related to visas, that'll be handled by Mr. Koshi sir, and then Matrimandir development activity, that'll be mentioned by Mr. Michael Bonke, and then land consolidation by Mr. Goyal sir, and then a brief on FAMC, so that will be done by Margarita, and we have general development activities, which will be presented by an Auroville resident, an architect named Sidhuja. So these are the different topics at which the programs will be moving. If you already have any questions, please already write it down so that we can hand over the papers. So we can start with the first presentation by Mr. Koshi sir, brief on visa.
Good evening and namaste to everyone. I'm Koshi Varghese. I've joined recently Auroville Foundation, and my experience is an ex-officer of Bureau of Immigration, and I have served as RRO Pondicherry, and I'm familiar to the Auroville subject and Auroville visas. Before commencing my particular topic, that is visas and more specifically Auroville visas, I would like to give a small, brief insight of visas and travel documents. Being international travelers, all of us are aware that the two main travel documents are passports and visas. Is it not? Passports as such are issued to citizens of the country, which is a right. Visas are issued by the host country, and it is not as a matter of right, but it is the prerogative of the host country. And the host country decides who should be allowed into their own country. Like for example, US, Schengen countries, Gulf countries, each have got their own evaluating system of who should be allowed into the country. And US visas, you must have seen, it starts from B is business visa, C is crew, D is transit on crew, E is treaty organization, F is students, G is for ambassadors and diplomats, H for highly skilled, I for immigrants, J for fellowship programs. So it goes on. Likewise, Indian government has also streamlined visa requirements based on who should be allowed into India. This is why I want to make a brief in the topic of visas. Briefly, how the visas are very important to every individual who visits India as foreigners. Here you should see Indian government, not only Indian government, every government decides upon allowing foreign nationals based on the requirement and based on their own safety and security, based on their economic needs, based on the political situations. And on basis of this, the visas are decided. Here you will see Indian government was so magnanimous because nowhere in India there was such a scheme called as Auroville visa policy. In 2005, Government of India brought this policy only for Auroville, where nowhere in the country foreigners were allowed to stay indefinitely. When I say indefinitely is, a person comes to India on a 5-year visa, He remains in India, gets the stay extension repeatedly for 5 years. Can you see this kind of an arrangement anywhere in the world? Have you seen such an arrangement anywhere in this world? Anyone? No. Such a system is not available anywhere in the world. That is because this is the reason. Acknowledging that Auroville is an international cultural township, the government of India had passed a special visa regulation for Auroville. That is in 2005. Here, the secretary plays an important role. The secretary of the Auroville Foundation issues recommendation letters to the Indian embassy concerned, as well as once the foreigner has entered India, for his continuous stay in India, grants stay extension recommendation letters. And based on those recommendation letters, the entry visas, a special type called as X2, is issued to Auroville for residents. Here, what happens is this Auroville visa has got some preconditions. It comes with an endorsement: work, business is not allowed. And similarly, it says compulsorily it has to be registered within 14 days on arrival. These are the preconditions of the Auroville X visa. Apart from the preconditions, there are also related features of this Auroville visa. There are a number of restrictions for Aurovillians to do activities outside Auroville. A person who has come on Auroville visa has to dedicate himself to the Auroville activities. In previous years, my experience with the Bureau of Immigration, we have seen many Aurovillians, especially foreigners, have taken up activities outside Auroville. And as I told you, Government of India, when it grants visa, it has set preconditions. All these preconditions are monitored by different agencies. If there is any violation, the Government of India agencies spot it out, pick it out, and the person is removed. You must have seen the old elders and the older Aurovillians who are there since 1970s. You would have seen number of instances where Aurovillians were removed out of Auroville. There were persons who indulged in murder, the persons who carried out unauthorized activity outside Auroville. These people were removed, and there were a lot of pressures for them to be brought back to India. But Government of India has its own definitive role in granting visa. That requirement is strictly based on the decision taken by the agencies and which is passed on by the agencies to the Government of India. Here, the entry visa, which is granted to the Aurovillians, will form the basis on which the authorities in India, for example, the RRO and the FRRO, they will act based on the recommendation letters to give stay extensions. Okay. Earlier, Aurovillians were issued with X1, X3 types of visas. Now these kind of visas are stopped. Now you will find only X2 types of visas issued to Aurovillians. Normally these visas come with validity of 3 months. Normally such visas you could have seen who are coming in volunteering purposes as volunteer small internship programs. So those people get 3 months visa. And some get 1 year visa based on the recommendation letter, some get 5 years visa. Here, the X visas which 3 months validity, it's not extendable. According to the present provisions, Government of India provisions, this 3 months visa, even though if it is granted to Aurovillians, it is not extendable. And X2 visas of 1 year and 5 years are extendable, but these visas extensions depend upon the base visas. For example, if one person is granted 1 year visa, the system and the provision is that he can be given extension only for 1 year, but provided he remains in Auroville and takes up the activities in Auroville. And this extension can be given for 3 years, that is 1 + 3 years. Beyond that, the Government of India was so magnanimous, even this 1 year visa nowadays have been considered for granting of 5 years term. So it again depends upon the recommendation letter of the secretary. Here, the Government of India takes a decision. Once the recommendation letter goes from this office, The government of India, through its agencies, concerns, they will make a cross check and based on requirements, visa is extended. Okay. Next. Now, there's a lot of fear, anxiety among Aurovillians that visas are not issued to people or not extended in the proper time. Now here I would like to give a small data which we have taken it from our system. So here we have given the top nationalities where the maximum number of residents are staying. So this is for the period from July 2021 to the till date, last week. The current 1 week data, you can add it. 100 visas have been given, you can add it on. So you see, Dutch nationals here, we can specifically mention the nationality of the total number of residents are 100. And when we have got 65 visa recommendations, out of which all the recommendations, as per request, it was granted 65 to all Dutch nationals. There may be some people who have not got their visa extensions, but it was not based on the recommendations of the foundation. It must be based on the decisions of the government of India. Because as I told you, the government of India also takes some action based on their own reports of the agencies. Okay, yeah, Spain, 61 residents, visa recommend 58, for the period requested 53, and we have restricted because there were some activities which was carried out by Aurovillians that time, who was Spanish national, which did not meet with the Aurovillian purposes. Like for example, when I say Aurovillian purpose, Auroville visa, for that matter, any visa, it has got some stipulated conditions. If you violate those conditions, for example, if Aurovillian is granted a visa, he should not be a part of any activity that is based literally on the visa provisions. An Aurovillian is supposed to be an Aurovillian. He is not supposed to take any kind of anti-activities which can be against the Auroville Foundation. For example, Auroville Foundation is again a Government of India body. There may be a difference of opinion among many people. Ultimately, it's a Government of India body. The Government of India is the office which recommends the visa, issues the visa. Yeah, when you again act against one of its own organization, the Government of India has to act. Likewise, France. We have got 428 nationals, out of which visas recommended are 376 for the period, restricted period 18, and 2 of them were issued Leave India notices. And the Leave India notices cannot be issued by the foundation. Leave India notices are issued only by Government of India based on the reports of the Government of India agencies. So here, there is no role of the foundation to grant or to pressurize for Leave India notice. The office of the secretary can only project that these are the activities which these people are doing, but they are not able to, give any sort of pressure to grant LIN. LIN decision is ultimately the Government of India's. Okay. German similarly, and totally USA, Korea, UK, Italy, etc., and other nationalities. Next slide. Now, during this period, 21 to 24, we have received total applications for visa recommendations, entry visa requirements, and 1,756. Out of which 1,028 visa recommendations were granted in total. Whatever was required, whether it was 5 years, whether it was for 1 year, it was granted completely. And in 26 cases, they were restricted. They were restricted from 5 years maybe to 1 year. So here, the anxiety among some of the Aurovillians is such kind of visas which were curtailed may be delayed. Because agencies play a role here, because it has to be processed by different offices. So it gets processed, but there is a time limit. Now today morning, Madam Secretary spoke to the competent authorities in the FRRO, and she has given a request for expediting if there are any delayed visas. And there was a positive response from the Government of India, especially the FRRO, for expediting this kind of visas which are delayed. Now, again, out of this complete recommended letters received, 2 people, as I told you, were granted LIN. So now, percentage-wise, you can see now 98% of visa applied were granted visa recommendations for the full period, for whether it is for 5 years or whether it is for 1 year. It was granted completely. Only in 1.4% there was restrictions. And leave India notices, only 2. Right? So the anxiety, fear, some kind of uneasiness among you can be avoided. And in case there is an anxiety over the visa delay, you can come to us straightly. I am there, Secretary Madam is there. We will try to sort out this. In fact, I personally interacted with FRR office for getting 2 of them for their visas to be expedited. So definitely we will play an important role in expediting this visa if there is a delay. Okay, with this I think I will end my brief presentation on visas and the visa extensions.
It's working? Yeah. Can you put the first slide? Okay. We had 2 lake meetings in autumn or end of last year. Now we'll confine ourselves to what has happened afterwards, because already a lot of information was given, respectively to the results which we have got from the first test stretch of 100 meter, which is more or less finally executed. Only 2 meter water level more is required. So the first concept what we had was that we have the Lego walls in the beginning not built to the full height of 10 meter, but finish rather the lake with lower Lego walls stretch after stretch. But then we decided that let us have in the next monsoon the first stretch 100 meter full height to see how it looks. Next slide. So we had, this is end of 2022, after the first monsoon. There you see the Lego wall, 8 meter 50 or something like that. And then next slide. We had actually in the monsoon, the water rose more than 8 meters 60. You can see here the walls were overflowing, the lake was overflowing into the Matrimandir area. And next. Now we are finishing the Lego walls to 10 meters 60, and then have, hopefully in the next monsoon, it will get the full height, so the gravel which you see on the shores will be underwater. The water level will come till the shore. Next slide. One very interesting observation which we made was we were all afraid due to the rainwater harvesting that muddy water comes into the lake, and this would carry all kinds of phosphates, biomass, dirt. And some specialists told us that we would never get that water clean again. We would have to, even filtration is not possible. We would have to take it out and replace it with cleaner water. But when you see the water now, can you put the next? It's absolutely clean, absolutely clean. I have been diving 2 days ago in the lake to inspect the water, the big pump where we wanted to have our experiment of the hydro storage, where we want to pump up the water to that small hillock in the east of the lake. And on the water cushion I was inspecting how it's tied to the ground. And I was surprised at 8-meter depth, which is now on the bottom of the lake, you have full light, which is very unusual. I have been diving in many sweetwater lakes and in open sea. Never have I seen in a sweetwater lake a water quality which is so fantastic that at 8 meters you have the full light. And in this whole discussion which is going on, people say that the water quality is bad because the depth of the lake should only be 4 meters, because whatever is below 4 meters doesn't get enough light, so no plants can grow, so it becomes a counterproductive area. But this is absolutely not the case. Usually the visibility in freshwater lakes is maybe 1.50 meter to maximum 3 meters. But here I found a visibility of 5 meters or sometimes even a bit more. So we were all surprised about the quality of the water. I presume that it is due to the granite chips which we have used as gravels. There also we are heavily criticized and people say we should take limestone. But in reality, I think the fact that we have no excess algae growth and we have such an excellent water quality is because of these granite chips. Next picture. You must have been surprised of that huge hill of earth between the town hall and the lake or the Matrimandir area. The reason why that was piled up was that we wanted to achieve before the next monsoon to foil the next stretch of the lake. And here you see the excavation. We have done it in steps. We will take off the corners of the steps, make a slope of a ratio of 1:3. Then compact it, then we have to foil it, then we have to put the granite chips, and all that has to be done before the next monsoon comes. In case that we get more water than what the 10.6 meter high walls can contain, that we can use the next stretch already, not to lose water. And once we have the next stretch done, then also we can play around. We could shift the water from the first stretch to the second one and inspect things or see what we can do. But because we are a little bit under time pressure to finish the next section before the monsoon comes, we had to pile the earth somewhere. We put it there, but we will try to remove it now and place it in some other areas. Next stretch. We have recently been criticized that the aesthetics of the lake is not what people would like to have or what one envisages. Naturally, this is the garden of Claude Monet in France, where everybody has that as the ideal vision of a lake, full of flowers and water lilies and trees and all that. The problem is that this is possible in France, but in our climate, if we have so much intrusion of biomass into the lake, then the water quality will be horrible. We will get an excessive algae growth. Next picture. Like when you go to the Auroville area, and there you see these water ponds. You have all the green algae there, or next. Or the brown mud is coming up from the methane gas from the bottom to the surface. So in our climate here, to avoid excessive algae growth, and that is of course the prime concern of ours, we cannot have a lake shore with too many overhanging trees and all that as everybody envisages. next picture. We could have a shore a little bit similar like that. No trees overhanging over the lake. And anyway, on the inner side of the shore, we don't want to have trees because that would block the visibility onto Matrimandir. On the outer side, where a lot of people will be and will look at the lake, we presume that in future there will be a lot of people coming to Auroville when Auroville is a little bit more developed as now. It will become very famous and there will be thousands of people coming that we can never prevent whatever we want to do. And then to house all these people and give them some kind of a possibility to maybe walk around the lake and be in shade. On the outer edge, of course, we envisage that we have a tree plantation, but also in a way that we don't get all the leaves into the lake. What we will do next now for the water quality or the biodiversity of the lake is that we will put some underwater plantation in pots, maybe on kind of sledges where we can let them down or pull them up. If now in the next monsoon the water level rises by 2 meters, we may raise them a little bit higher that they get more light. And once we have underwater plants in the lake which generate oxygen, then of course the fish life can be much more intensive. We can put bigger fish, kois, whatever. We have a lot of fish in the lake now, and anybody who has doubts about the water quality, we really recommend go to the lake shore, look inside, see the water, see the thousands of fishes which are there, and get convinced yourself about the water quality. So once we have a bit of underwater plantation, and then we will experiment with different fishes, turtles, God knows what, and we see to what extent can we scale that up and allow more biomass to come. Then also it may be possible that the shorelines will get a bit more diversified, but we have to do that carefully and see that we establish an equilibrium of fauna and flora in the lake, which won't lead to an excessive algae growth. Right now, we have for the lake as it is, I think, quite ideal situation of the water quality. We'll try to allow more life by certain measures which we take. But also only once the lake is finished, we can really start beautifying the shores. Right now, when the lorries go up and down on the outer shore, it doesn't make much sense. So any question to the lake project?
Please raise your hands if you have any questions. Shall we? Oh.
Prasad?
What's the temperature difference between the atmospheric temperature and the water temperature at the very bottom?
At the bottom it was quite cool. I didn't have a thermometer with me, but I presume that at the bottom it's maybe 5, 6, 7 degrees cooler than on the top, and my estimate is that right now on the top it was around 28 degrees, something like that. But then when you go down a little bit, it gets cooler quite fast.
Yeah, I'm asking this question because if the water is warm, then the algae is a big issue. If the water is cooler, then I think that issue will be negligible.
Yeah, that's of course also the advantage of a deeper lake, that the water doesn't heat up so much, and that the temperature is more constant. No more questions. I'm surprised. There's so much floating around on the internet, but then when one asks questions, nobody comes forward. Okay.
My question is more about the soil that you dig out. Is there still a plan to make one big hill with some water storage, or what is the plan?
Definitely there is the plan for a big hill, and there are two aspects. One is that the mother herself had the hill as a part of her Auroville concept, and when she was speaking about a hill where she made a drawing, she was speaking really of a hill and not a little hillock which is 10 meter high, and it doesn't even reach the level of the crown of the trees. A hill should come out of the trees, and that in the evening you can enjoy the sunset, you can see far into the distance. So the fact that the mother spoke about a hill and made a drawing of a hill, it means for us that it really has to be a hill and not some kind of contouring of a landscape. And since we want to make it absolutely safe, we will have a sloping of a ratio of 1 to 3. And to come really above the tree area, the hill height should be 30 meters minimum. And that means we have to have on each side 100 meter or 90 meter to reach that side. That means we need 180 meters width plus the area on top. And that comes to quite a volume of earth. So that is also one reason why we want to dig it 10 meter. If we would dig it only 4 meter, we would not be able to make a hill which supersedes the tree height, and then you just have a hillock in a forest where you look at some trees that has no charm. So definitely we are aiming for the big hill. We are still buying some pieces of land in the area where we have planned the hill, and we hope that that will be finished soon, and then we'll transport with conveyor belts all the earth there, then it's out of the way.
Just additional, on that big hill, you also want to put that water storage? I mean, that battery effect with the water? Or?
That was a concept in the beginning, but we have, first of all, maybe a few different options. We definitely wanted to have an uphill power storage, to have a lot of local solar, which we can buffer with an uphill power storage. But to have a lake on the top of the hill means that it has to have quite a big extension. We don't know whether we will achieve that. And then also now that anyway the desalination plant is coming closer, we intend to have an uphill power storage where the lower part is not the foot of the hill as we had it envisaged before, but it's the beach area. We may even use, if that is possible, we have to try it out, the underwater cushion which we have conceived in the lake. If we can have in the open sea an underwater cushion as the counterpart for the Matrimandir Lake, and shovel water between an underwater cushion in the open sea and the Matrimandir Lake, then that would be much more effective. We have 50 meter height difference or even 55, and we have a much bigger water quantity. So it's not yet absolutely clear whether we'll go for that or not. We'll try out right now. The turbine is coming, it's already on the way. We'll try out a first small uphill power station between that hill in the east of the Matrimandir Lake, that first hill which we have piled up, and the Matrimandir Lake, and then we see what experience we get, and then let's see when the hill comes, then we'll answer that question. John?
Yeah, I know that Michael really wanted to get some back and forth going on the question of the lake design and the petitioner's vision of it all. I don't know if any people are present who signed the petition asking us to stop the work. Maybe they're here and they're too shy to put up their hands. I don't know. So I will just for a moment go that way. So we have the present project going on, high speed, very well. We were asked to pause that and talk about another version. That's not a realistic option. I have watched the presentation of Mohan Rao. I don't know how many have. How many have seen the presentation of Mohan Rao, the half-an-hour presentation on the alternative view? Hardly anybody. Well, Mohan Rao is a professional designer, lake designer. He has done an excellent job of developing an alternative view for the lake. Now, it looks to me, both of them, both Harold and Mohan Rao, satisfy the condition of creating an isolating zone around Matrimandir, which was Mother's big request, put water around to make an isolating zone. Harold's view, the one we're doing now, is very strong in that it incorporates a purpose to the lake besides the visual purpose. It's a water storage body, it's deep, it's economical, but it's very weak in my view and everybody's view on the presentation of the shoreline. Mohan Rao's presentation is visually very, very nice, but it seems to have no function in terms of a water storage facility. So it looks to me like the occasion for a marriage. There could be it's definitely not going to be a love marriage. It might be an arranged marriage. I've heard that those eventually can work quite well also, or even better. It would need some study. There are excellent points in Mohan Rao's presentation. If it could be studied, if there was any way to integrate some of those points, for example, dealing with the seasonal fluctuation of water. We have a wild card in the situation, which is the desalination plant. If it comes online soon enough, it will perhaps handle the seasonal fluctuation. If it's taking time, we will be faced with a big seasonal fluctuation. And there, Mohan Rao's presentation deals with it very nicely. So I don't know, I look at Mr. Goyal as somebody who might be in a position to facilitate such a negotiation for a marriage. I don't know how you call it when you're having a marriage, check the horoscopes. But, so that's, I don't know if there's anybody else in the audience that wants to speak to that issue.
Just to say something to what you said. In the end, we will of course try to go the utmost in that direction, to have a big biodiversity, lots of plants, animals, all that. But we have to test out how far we can go. The moment the water quality starts tripping and we get an excess algae growth and the fish die and all this and that, then it becomes counterproductive. And everybody wants us to have a lot of biomass in the lake, which, if you look at the pictures which they are giving in their presentation, that's just absolutely impossible in this climate here. That's my thoughts.
Can I speak? When I look at the discussions about the lake, I can basically see two main areas. One are technical issues, where the discussion is between the depth, the size, the shape, etc. And then there is another aspect which Michael frequently and repeatedly went to, is the aesthetics. And the aesthetics has constraints in implementation. And as you just now said, the biomass which we would like to see is incompatible with our climate and the effect it would have on water purity. But there must be compromises, options, whereby, as John said, arranged marriage could take place. So the point I'm trying to make is that maybe it's the time to run experiments with regards to what is viable with regards to aesthetics and where do we go too far and endanger the entire lake. So wouldn't it be interesting to explore what people want and what is viable to do?
I think it's a bit too early. The bigger the lake goes, the more grows, the more options we have. We were so surprised about a lot of things which we expected it would be much worse. For example, the evaporation on the big lake area is only 3 millimeters per day. That means we have over the year more rainfall on the lake surface itself than evaporation. We were criticized all the last 20 years that we are building a lake which puts a burden on Auroville because the evaporation has to be compensated, and that can be done either with groundwater, which nobody wanted, or with desalinated water where the desalination plant is not there. And now we find that we have an excess water even without water harvesting. Only the rainfall on the lake itself gives us more water than what evaporates. And if we do water harvesting from even a relatively small area, we have much more water than what we need, for example, to water the Matrimandir garden and all that. So what I want to say, the moment the lake gets bigger, the conditions for all that get much better. And finally, when it's closed circle and when we develop a current, then again we have much more options than what we have now. So what we could do now would only be in one section, and then we want to have the freedom also maybe to experiment with the water, take it out to the next side and all that. And the shores, anyway, on the outer shore where we want to have a lot of biodiversity and plants, there the road goes now with the lorries going up and down for the excavation. So to do that now, I think, is too early. We have to wait a little bit when the lake is bigger and when the excavation is not so active anymore, and then we can do something in that direction. But we are doing it already now. We will, as I said before, we will have some underwater plantation and see how it affects the oxygen household and what fishes we can put and all that.
Just one more question, a quick one. The biomass which falls into the lake, would that eventually require dredging, or is that sort of stabilizing by itself?
No, it depends how much it falls. You have to counteract it with oxygen because it consumes oxygen. So if you have a lot of underwater plantation, which again gives you an equilibrium, then you can have some biomass in the lake. But then if you have too much, then it starts fouling and you get sulfuric water and not enough oxygen, and then your fish die and all that. So to a certain extent, of course, it can be allowed, and there has to be an equilibrium, and we have to see how to achieve that.
Yeah, I just want to come back to John about the arranged marriage. The design that has been offered by Mr. Mohan Raj, that's the name? Well, we have seen this actually already the last 10 to 15 years, which has been coming from Auroville quarters, the same ideas about the aquatic plants, the trees along the edge, all of that. We've already gone through that. But the point to remember is that what did the mother want? Even in her drawing, she wasn't actually emphasizing trees and everything. She wanted this isolating zone around Matrimandir, but she wanted Matrimandir to emanate into the city. And it is for one of those reasons that she cancelled the penultimate plan, which was going to block the emanation, this feeling of the view of Matrimandir from the rest of the city and the emanation of that force. I would be worried if there are too many high-growing trees all along the edge. The promenade has to be there, it has to be beautiful, and I'm sure it will be once it's all done, with a certain amount of landscaping and everything else. That it will come, it will be beautiful. But it should not block Matrimandir from the rest of the town, even though it is this island which is isolated. And also, what he has already pointed out, the more trees we have hanging over, we all love trees, but we have to see that it fulfills its role as the complete Matrimandir. That's the first thing she talks about, even before she talks about what she calls the pavilion of love. She talks about this whole running water, which is going all around it, and this expanse of water which carries into the town. So, we have to look at this not as an ordinary lake. I mean, we're not here for a recreational lake. It's something else. It's part of Matrimandir. Thank you.
Anu, just to reply briefly, you've waved a flag, which I have to reply to. What does Mother want? She has repeatedly told us, not this or that, this and that. Find the synthesis, collaborate, find the true way forward. This is what she wants.
Yeah, but if she has specified certain things, shouldn't we try to first attempt that like we did for Matrimandir? There were so many, if you remember, for the outer skin, how many things were put forward. In the end, we did what she wanted. And that was that is part of the vision, and we have to hold that. Thank you.
I have something to say.
I think we have to now go to the next presentation. We may have in the end still a question and answer session if you want. I or others could remain here maybe and answer questions, but I think now we have to proceed in the program.
But there's just one point I would like to correct Anu on, and that is that I think you may have got it wrong, but there are the outer gardens, there is the park, and Mother has talked about tall trees in the park that surrounds the lake on the outer side. So we are going to have tall trees in that park. They will not be there'll be no overhang onto the lake because it will be at the edge, at the periphery. So we have to have the space for the outer gardens oblique park.
Good evening, everybody. I am DC Goyal, associated with this foundation in the capacity as senior consultant and OSD town development. Post my retirement from the government in January, I have been working here since February 24. This subject of land consolidation has been given to me quite recently, and I really congratulate each one of the Aurovillians who are here to have chosen this beautiful part of the world and the universe as the place of stay. And believe me, as to complement the divine consciousness to which we are all committed as voluntary servitors, I assure that I will be doing my necessary responsibility and duty for consolidating the ground for you in the city. The details of all this consolidation as of now stands. The city has a total area of 1260 acres, of which 1198 has been consolidated, and we are here to consolidate the balance 62, that is for the city part. For the greenbelt part, the total area is around 3,588 acres, of which only 1,168 acres has been consolidated. Leaving aside that the 959 acres of village habitation, the target before us is to consolidate 1,461 acres of land for the green belt. Though our priority as of now is to consolidate the properties and the land for the city area so that the development of the galaxy plan as envisioned by the Divine Mother is achieved as soon as possible. We will continue to thrive with that consolidation of the green belt also as per the policy of the government. Since last few years, we have acquired through purchase / exchange somewhere around 71 acres. The Prombok land which has been acquired in exchange is 27.91 acres, and Madam Shamla has gifted around 18 acres of land. That makes up totals up to around 116.91 acres of land precisely, which has been consolidated during last few years. I understand that there are various ways to consolidate the land, but the most opportune one which has been accepted both the master plan and as also as the approval of the Government of India is to consolidate through exchange. And we have our set of officers in the Auroville Foundation who are doing their job with lot of dexterity and with complete commitment towards the work, following the principles laid down of valuation, both by the various government bodies, including the Income Tax Department, because they also value land for a different purpose, and also the prescriptions made by the government of Tamil Nadu as to how the lands are to be valued for exchange purposes. And believe me that the valuations which have been developed in-house have been subjected to cross-checks through the agencies appointed empaneled valuers who have gone through each and every detail of it and come out with their reports which have been examined, adopted, so that not even a single valuation is beyond what is due to be considered for the exchange. Apart from it, internal audits, pre-audits, post-audits have been undertaken and are also in process to ensure that there is no undue advantage while this exchange takes place. I'm aware of some dissatisfactions where some lands have been exchanged where the present users of that land have some concerns. In my personal capacity as well as in the organizational capacity, we are visiting each and every part of such issues, and even I am visiting them physically and examining them, so that if there is any issue which can be corrected, rectified, or explained, clarified, we are open, and so that eventually the exchange which takes place is beneficial for the city as a whole. I am sorry that I couldn't prepare a detailed presentation for the consumption of your information, because since morning I have been, and since yesterday I have been visiting these areas, and I assure that when we meet next time we will be able to give a better explanation and better presentation on those land consolidation issues. So right now I would like to have the house open for any question and answers on this issue, which I'll certainly try to answer to the best of my ability.
Due to time restriction, we can take up to 3 questions by mic, and the rest can please write it on paper. So please raise hands if you have any questions.
Hello. Thank you for nice presentation by all the 3 major district satisfaction who are we are facing in Auroville. I'm suggesting that if each area, certainly there are experts in both sides of the team and persons who are dissatisfied. If we can take a form, a committee, or all the land, this one reconciliation as well as lake area, as well as whatever is the major point of dissatisfaction, we can form a committee, discuss in detail. So certainly these can be avoided, and we can work together. So is there any try we doing for that one so that it can be sought out? We are thinking, everybody, most of the things are actually people are not even attending. We are leaving the hope that Auroville is for unity and Auroville we have to work together. And what message we are giving to the world and our surroundings. So can we find some way where we can work at least together? Certainly there is who are dissatisfied and there are good talent, and both sides we can sit together and find out some way which is acceptable, or maybe we can find out the majority of the way once decided that we have to go that way. Because this is not the, Auroville is not that been made by the region and all those things. This mother has decided, and even mother's way of telling also, 50% people say that this is the way of mother's telling, others way express different way. Same points we can say differently, but certainly there is a high consciousness which is working, and you will silently will try to find out the some ways it can be done. Certainly we are hopeful for that. Is there anything on that line?
Sure, sir. Your point is well taken, and you should appreciate that since last 2 days as it's submitted, I have been taking both the parties together to the site for resolutions and discussions so that the issues are resolved amicably. So we are started working on those lines. Very shortly you will find the changes in the system.
I'm Lakshay. First, thank you for your detailed information about land consolidation, and now that you are focusing on it, it's very important for Auroville. I wanted to know if you are laying more importance on the city over the green belt, so that the 60 something is acquired first, so that we can consolidate the land plans. The second part is, how soon can we expect the lands which are remaining on the ground to be acquired? Do we have some sort of a deadline? And the third part is, I had written about 2 months ago about an option of having an auction for our land, the ones that we are ready to let go to acquire. Why don't we put it out in the open so that people can bid for it, and there is a competitiveness in this whole atmosphere, and it is all open and it is transparent. Thank you.
Now, with respect to the relativity between the city area and the green belt, certainly the impetus and the emphasis is more on the city area, because that is where the galaxy plan has to come. So of course that is a priority. But green belt is not far behind, because that is also a part of the master plan as far as regulation is concerned, developmental regulations are concerned there. So we can also have a stake in the regulation even if the land is not ours. So I hope that answers your first question. Now, coming to the other aspects regarding you asking for an auction and the time frame. See, this can only be done through negotiations. Exchange cannot come through by an order. The other side, who is holding a freehold property, which we in local parlance called as patta land, has to be convinced to part away with it. And at the same time, while he decides to part away with it, he will also like to have a certain bargain from whatever assets we have at our disposal. So this is a matter of negotiation where you just cannot fix any deadline to it, sir. You can keep on trying and keep on efforting, and when you are in a position to mutually agree, he knows our part, that we need that land, and we need that land desperately. But at that same time, we cannot just say that you take only this land. If you have to tell him that you have to take only this land, the time of negotiation will have to be longer, and which is not determinate. Now, coming to the point of putting things to auction. See, we are not selling land. We are only exchanging land. So we have to have the feel of the others, but what they want and whether we can shed what they want or not. So it is not a matter of something that we have acquired and selling it off, but what is more important is to get and acquire what we want to have. Maybe yes, for that we may have to compromise some place or the other, even some chosen part of our assets, just to make and ensure that the city area is fully consolidated. So both the auction part and all those things, if I have surplus land, I don't want to maintain it, yes, I can go for auction. But in this case, auction is not this thing. So see, once auction for exchange and all those things, you ought to be having a comparative statement on common terms. Now one comes up and says, you give me this part of land, so many acres. Another comes up and says, you give me this part of land, so many acres. Now this cannot be a solution because it does not require any discovery of valuation. The valuation has to be based on guideline values. So that part is fixed. So now it is not a matter of discovering anything on the basis of some auction basis. It is something which has to eventually go at the negotiation level. If you are looking forward for avoiding negotiation by having auction, I'm afraid it will not lead you anywhere, but it will rather leave you more confused whether to shed this or whether to shed that. And both will have the more confusing conditions. For some here, A solution would be better, for some B part solution would be better. So that will increase the dilemma, instead of reducing and decision making may become difficult.
One last question can be taken by Mike.
There's someone there in the last.
Hello. My question is, when we open land for negotiation in exchange, the bargaining power of the person in front of us, they are at a stronger position. We already know that. What I have noticed, I'm still a newcomer, so I'm saying this. What I have noticed is that the people are selling their lands to people who have higher negotiation powers, and then Auroville is having to negotiate with people with higher negotiating powers. So we are not really having a fair playground in negotiation because the person on the other side is increasing, what do you say? They are stronger and they are getting stronger. So when money is exchanged, you can talk value, but when it comes to land, you're going to keep negotiating forever is what I feel. I may be right or wrong, but this is my observation of the entire bioregion, green belt, as well as city.
Fine. Now, a general question to the House, please. It is in whose interest to go in for negotiation? The private owner or the Auroville Foundation? Who wants the land deal? So who has to go down to get the land?
Though are the roads close to the highway getting increasing in value as time goes?
So, you see, these are again based on some perceptions. The systems prescribed by the government for exchange are based on guideline values. We undertake valuation, and once we say that on highways the values are higher, it will get reflected in the guideline values. So my concern and my advice to all of you is very simple. Though we may have those perceptions, the call is very simple. We have to consolidate the ground and develop the galaxy as envisioned. It is not, we need not see the individual lands which are going in exchange only. Please don't have a view of only 50% of the deal. The other 50% that is your gain is also important. And by the time you want to consume time in getting a negotiated offer according to your satisfaction level, the development cost will gallop more faster. So look in this perspective also, that you will have to, for consolidating, it is your requirement. You have to develop the city, you have to develop the galaxy. In that circumstances, I don't say that you just throw everything to the wind. But if the rules are being followed, the valuation principles are being followed, that should be sufficient.
So I think we're finished with the 3 questions due to time restriction. So those, please raise your hands. We'll give a piece of paper and you can write down questions and we'll answer. So next, we can go for the next presentation by Margarita from FAMC.
Okay, let me see. Let's start the presentation. I can read. No, because I am tremors. Welcome to the residents of the Auroville community. On the today meeting, listen the FNC report for the last 2 years. Please, next. As we had been presenting for all community gathering, we are basing our work in the 57 governing board minutes of the meeting. That was on 2nd of November 2021. How we stand today in April 2024? I will start with the economy, point 415. That is the last point of the economy. The model envisages Auroville as one self-supporting township. All Auroville residents are expected to contribute to achieving this goal and work for the collective welfare of Auroville. What has been done in the light of this task? Next. As you can see, the Auroville Foundation has one website. In their website, they are publishing all reports, all minutes of the meetings. Everything is for the public domain. This is the annual report and accounts for the year 2022-2023. And we are now start to prepare the 2023-2024 under the Minister of Education. Next. We start, actually, the financial year 2023 23-24. With one question that the standard operation procedures, SOPs, and policies which the BCC has to follow for all of the financial transactions. And these are under the scrutiny by the internal auditors. Auroville is extremely high surveillance by the controller and the accountants and auditors general, the CAG. They conducted one audit to BCC related financial service accounts, procedures and policies. Mainly all of our payments done to the service units and the collection from the furtherance units. It was recorded by the CAG that the numbers of the units failed to transfer the city service contribution in one timely manner in the last 10 years. As per the Code of Conduct 2017, approved by the Auroville Foundation and the FNC, the units are supposed to pay the contribution by the 30th of June of the next financial year, and the outstanding contribution payments that are not settled by the September 1st are liable for additional contribution of the 1% per month. Who brought all this was the CAG on March 2023. Next. Then what happened? The CAG gives the task to FNC and BCC to collect in 1 year, by the 31st, 2024, all the dues for the past 10 years. Very, very, very stressful task. What is the recovery report? We call recovery for the 10 years. We are taking in account that we had to review, to find accounts, to bring numbers, and data has a lot of missing, gone, from the 2012-13 to 2022-23. What is the result? Next. First of all, we fulfilled the CAG deadline. By the 31st of March 2023, we did this recovery. In terms of the trusts, you can see the recurring lags. The first 10 trusts are the highest. That means Altex 1.7 crores. Catira Calais is the second with 121 plus 20 from our that made almost 140, followed by Swagatan Trust. These three are the highest trusts who were in recovery. The total amount of recovery for the 37 trusts was almost 7.5 crores. But at the same time that we collect such amount, 7.5 crores, we had the issue that are irrecoverable amount of money, 2.2 crores. And now we had to face the CAG to tell that we could not collect 2.2 crores, basically for two things. People say, I don't have money. Or Aurovillians say, this is donations, or this was grants, or this was contributions, or this was fees. These four words are become now very difficult to manage under the authorities CAG and GST. Basically, the situation is that they say if there is no one valid document, they call competent authority document, there is no claims for exemptions. The largest trust that cannot recover in lakhs is, as you see, in Cathedral Trust, 16 lakhs, but we had also free flow, 14 lakhs. The service trust is almost 44 lakhs. The exploration guest house, and probably this is one result of the impact of the COVID, is the 26 lakhs. But the next one is the CSR with 37 lakhs. The CSR is based in research, and the government of India, especially the Ministry of Education, has been giving very strictly guidelines. What is research and how do report research? And we have been constantly reporting research, the same research of the past 10, 12, 14 years. That means has been no research, but still we are reporting the same research. We had also Auroville. Auroville has almost 20. And the Baranivas. Basically, the issue in Baranivas is the guest houses. Next. It was the first time also in the history of Auroville that the BCC has to present the balance sheet for the city service supported units and has to prepare and has to tell the executives that they had to sign the documents which were submitted to the Auroville Foundation. They never did, was the first time. They didn't like to sign. But they did. Also, the auditors point out that each unit activity needs to be registered and the trust. I want to make clear here that when I say the word auditors, we are talking about the new generation of auditing in Auroville. In the 2023-24, half of the previous charter accounts were replaced. Two new companies, there's PKF, Sridhar and Santanam from Chennai, and Sekar Associates from Chennai, come to bring a lot of knowledge, experience, hard work, and findings. And I will say a lot of dialogue and opening to talk to the community. The 4 groups of auditors were presented in the Savitri Bhavan to all the trustees in October 2023, and they start to work every day and night. These auditors that are also supporting the new, not the new because also we start from 2023-24, is the system and process audit to be regularized and to be totally in compliance. Then, the VCC office can not support any more umbrellas recording the accounts in the unit. For VCC, prioritization now is that all the units under VCC has to be registered under one relevant trust. Also, I want to point out that suit units and suit activities also are no more for 24-25. Basically, the auditors, but not only the auditor, the CAG and the GST and other authorities, even the Minister of Education, are saying very clear that we had to simplify our organization in terms of the accounting. It was observed also that the VCC current accounting system has lacks of data accuracy. And this is coming from basically from the interpretation of the accounts. We have been increasing something that is called the in-house accountant. I had before, last year, in my WhatsApp group, around 40 accountants. Today I have 93 accountants. In Cathedral Trust, we went from 100 units and activities where 99% were under Omega. Today, 60% are with own accountant, only 40% under Omega. Then, that amount of the accountants has different, sometimes interpretation in the standardization of the accounts. It's like the auditors say, is potatoes or potatoes? Looks the same. But you speak the same? No. You write the same? No. Then in accounts, this is a lot of confusion, and this is, we don't say neither in FNC nor in BCC is bad willing, but it's definitely one very serious issue that we had never been in Auroville under the standardization of the accounts. Now, looking into the process to do the Auroville, I always forget the name, Auroville Integrated Common Accounting System, AVICAS. The first priority was decentralization in one very simple and friendly manner. And this has been decided to do through the Soho ERP cloud. When the Soho itself, when they start to collect the data and do the training programs and start to put in the clouds our information, they also agree that we had to do the standardization of the accounts into the program of the centralization of the data. We had challenge, and we are going to face more challenge in the near future, but definitely is one way forward to bring accountability and to be transparency, and what is more important, speed the time to do accounting in our Auroville. We had also been working with the Auroville Integrated Information Services, that is called AIIS, and especially VCC, they started working in one online web platform. And the new budget for 24-25 has been modeled with the AIIS. Next. Then, what happened in this 23-24? This is our City Service Research Report. Next. The first is the Divine Grace account evolution. And when we are starting the 21-22, the Divine Grace has 9 crores. Went quite stable during the 21 and 22, and finalized the year with the 10.26 crores. That means 12-month increment of the 13%. But the things start to be difficult by the 22-23. Basically, is the grants stop that make almost the large amount of the income for the Grace account. And the Grace account by almost February the 23 reached the lower value. I was in BCC in 2019 and 20, part of 21. And even in the COVID time, the grace account went down, of course, but no at that serious level. Then by 22, 23, we had this minus of the 28 in the grace account. And was the moment that the CAG said, we had to collect all the dues of the past 10 years, hands-on. Then the effort has been shown fruits in the 23, 24. You can see how we start gradually to start from April to going up and going up. There are some batches. But at the end of the March 24, that we had to submit our report to the CAG and the Minister of Education and the Parliament, we had moved from minus 28 to plus 57 in the Divine Grace account. Now Divine Grace account is almost 11.5 crores. Next one. Now the payments. No, sorry, the incomes. The transformation of the incomes between 22-23, basically to 23-24, is that the furtherance units move from the 43% participation to 50% when the service, including the guest houses, went down, the 41 to 37, and the external sources went down from the 6 to 3. Then the furtherance activities and units, they come out to put the balance and put in better condition the grace account. At the end, you can see was one increment, almost the 70%. Fine. Next one, the payments. The payments has been shown in the 22-23 that at the same time there is no collection or very difficult collection, was one over expenditure. The major numbers has been always for education, children's and youth, and for, of course, the social support. You can see the whitest mountains is for the 22-23, the highest values. And we had to reduce 10% the payments. Then together, in increasing the collection and reducing the payments is more or less the 25%, the work that we had done in the 23-24. Next one. For the budget 24-25, the projection work and the progress that we are doing with the AIIS tools, we moved from 104 services supported to 91 services supported. That means the balance, they were transformed in cost center, or they were merged, or they have been asked to be self-sufficient. We continue the total maintenance amount, the 18 crores. The adults represent 10.5, went to 10.8 crores. For the children's, we had 604 children's. We keep the same budget until now. The recurring budget has been done from 5.2 crores to 4.5 crores. The number of the staff employed in city service units remain the same, 360 people, and the total salaries disbursed by the city service units to those employees remain the same in 4.52 crores. Next one. Then, there are a lot of new challenges, as I say a few minutes ago, is related to 57 4.12. So the Auroville Integrated Common Accounting System, AVICAS, has to implement more effective and transparent financial management. But it's not only to bring Soho ERP cloud and put everybody in Soho. It's not only centralize the data. It's not only this standardization of the accounts, but what is, and from what I see, and it's my job in the audit, is to keep this system and process audit and start to elaborate with the auditors the SOPs for the system and process audit. And also auditor report on each unit activity. This is something good that I had never seen in Auroville, because the auditors are visiting every furtherance unit activity. They make appointment, they visit, they talk, they discuss the numbers. It's not only like for accountant problem, it is the accountant. Today we are changing, we are moving. The accountability, the responsibility is in the executives and managers, not in the accountants. And this is the transformation for the next point. The next point, is the point 411, the 57. Simplify the governance and organization's structures, enable the trust, enable the units, enable the activities. The auditor's finding, because it's also it's so good to see with the auditors. You can see with the auditors. Everybody can see with the auditors. It's what they find, and what they find according what the Ministry of Education is telling us how Auroville Foundation has to realign the governance of our organizations. Then the auditors finding that the MOU recommend the minimum amount of the GST numbers for only one PAN number. And I remember that July 1st in 2017 was in Bhumika Hall, where we had meeting of many trustees and executives with some of the previous FNCs and chartered accountants. The discussion about the GST was confusion, was enormous amount of confusion, and was the moment that everybody jumped in to catch one GST number. I think we reached 127 GST numbers or something like that, and now slowly we have been reducing to 43 GST numbers. But what are the findings? The findings, not only for the CAG, for the auditors, but the GST people, especially GST intelligence, who is upon us, is that the intra-transactions are killing us. Putting GST between us, between our units, between our activities, not make sense. And then we are trying to find competent authority documents to prove that I cannot pay GST, or I don't need to pay GST. Then, first thing for 24-25 is definitely the reduction of the GST numbers. The second task is, as I mentioned, the intra-transactions has to be almost null. You have one PAN number, the ideal is to have one GST number, and we stop the problem. The third one is related to donations, grants, contributions, fees. We take very light the word donation, contributions, fees. I'm going to contribute, I have excess of this, I can give that. Well, now this doesn't work like this. Unity Fund is the one who receives, and from Unity Fund is the one who are going to give to others. There is no all way around. Then we have to be supported by, always, by one competent authority document. Next one. I will finish with from the BCC group who has done amazing job for 23-24, and I have seen a lot of stress and very difficult moments that were sorted out. That the Auroville must be one example of sincerity towards the work, and the work needs to be done in the spirit of the Karma Yoga. The FNC and the BCC observe that so far accountability and responsibility is missing in the work culture broadly, and that has led to creation of numbers of miscellaneous maintenance categories where individuals were supported without any contribution through work and were never questioned. The FNC and BCC is aspiring to bring accountability, responsibility, and transparency in the process with the spirit of service to the truth. Thank you very much.
Please raise your hands if you have any questions.
More and more, I think I got it all wrong. FNC funds an asset management committee. What is being presented here is the auditing and accounting committee. Where is the development? Where is the aspiration of the units to contribute? It's only audit, go for it, put suspicion on everybody, and it doesn't. An economy that is run by an accountant or an auditor is an economy who dies. The economy, they can help in the development, but it should not finalize to that. FNC presented an accounting and auditing and CAGs and stuff like that. Where is the development? Where you are working to make the economy of Auroville growing? We are exchanging land to land. Nobody thinks of building and developing the land and then exchanging. This is also a job of FNC. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I worked 20 years like a madman to arrive to be suspected of anything. But I hope that we'll evolve. Sinduja invited me 2 years ago for a plan of development. Nothing happened. I went. I was insulted because I went. But I went. But nothing happened. So, if we put this weight of control, I don't say that it should not be control, but should not be only control. Should be some place to breathe and to progress.
Daniel, thank you for that question. As the convener of FAMC, I want to respond to it. I think the emphasis definitely is on growing, on development. And I think there are many projects, I don't know if I'm putting you in a spot, Michael, but even some of the plans we are trying to make, etc., we'll have an occasion today, maybe not an occasion yet, to share all of it. But it's also true that as long as you know, when you do what you have to do, you can do what you want to do. Am I making sense? Sometimes if the basic laws of the land or whatever is required is complied with, it's not as difficult as we believe it to be. If those compliances are done, then the pathways are clear for us. We can really grow, we can thrive, we can flourish, and Auroville must grow, thrive, flourish. We're moving in that direction. But what also needs to be done is basic abiding by the laws of the land, which either for reasons of not knowing or whatever reason in the past that has been in some cases missed. And this whole effort in a very, very supportive way, in a very proactive way, in a very, shall I say, conducive way with the auditors we're trying to put in place. And the auditors, by the way, we have meetings with them regularly. They're also sharing with us what are the pain points of units in further developing. So your own question, if you want to expand, if you want to grow, what are the concerns, what are the problems? And I also want to share with all of you that in the middle of May, because right now, end March, 31st March is when the financial year ends. Now, Government of India expects all the organizations under it, including our entity, which is under the Ministry of Education, to submit all the accounts by of year ending 31st of March by end of April. So they're all, as you know, those of you who are connected with any economic activity, which most of you are, the auditors are literally burning the midnight oil. They're all camping here as we speak, trying to really, their teams are working, completing the work. But middle of May, we're going to have a dedicated session with all the trustees, with all the executives of units and activities. And I assure you, Daniel, that the effort is definitely to encourage growth. But if we do it in a manner that we are not compliant, we certainly don't want to have any of you vulnerable. If tomorrow there are income tax department people or people from GST coming, which is already happening, and questioning you, figuring out why this has not happened. So I think there is something that we learn called a binding constraint. If there is a bucket which has a hole in it and you pour water in it, it leaks. If you pour more and more water, it's going to continue to leak. So initially it's a good idea also to fix all that, to make sure that we are compliant with what is required, so that as we do more and more, it can really save that and we can harvest the resources needed for Auroville. And also when you talk about land productivity, I couldn't agree more. Even farmlands, the productivity really needed a big push. And now we are working on that, and we really want to make sure with different approaches, a multi-pronged approach of working with our farm groups, but also with external experts, all of it. We want to increase productivity of the existing units and also encourage more and more new entities to come here. But from day one, compliance is also required. That's a small thing, but so far, maybe we have not paid too much of attention. That's the reason all this is coming up. So it's about setting our house a little bit in order. So the emphasis may seem like we're doing a lot more on the audit, on the compliance front, but the story is that we want to really grow and we want to run, we want to sprint. But to do that, we have to tighten our shoes, wear the shoelaces, get fit to be able to run. So that's where we are. I hope that answers the question. And if you have anything more in detail, as I said, we'll have a complete dedicated session in May, middle of May, for all of you. Once the audit is done, we'll also have the results to say where all can we have scope for greater growth.
Hello, ma'am. Lakshay again. Thanks for that analogy of the bucket and the holes. So I want to continue on that. I would like to little bit bring the attention to the size of the bucket that we are looking at. If you have to manifest the city, Mother wanted in 1968 the city to be built in 10 years. here we are in 2024 still dreaming. If we have to take the resolve of building the city in the next 10 years, what does that really mean? That means, in my view, anywhere in between 30,000 to 50,000 crores we need to build our infrastructure and social infrastructure, physical infrastructure and social infrastructure. So that kind of brings down to about 3,000 to 5,000 crores per year. So we need to put our bucket in context to what we need and what we have. I'm glad that the bucket is the holes are being fixed, but at the same moment we need to also replace the bucket as such with a really large size, because otherwise we are just fixing the bucket, and even if the bucket is fixed, I don't think it can suffice our needs. Two holes which I referred to, I saw the city services budget which you presented, Margarita, thanks for the presentation. And in that expenses list, there is no mention of communication. As we all know, the city blockers are putting all their energy in communication, or rather miscommunication. We don't have any budget to counter that. That's quite a worrying trend in my view. At least some budget of it must be given to AMI and other communication resources that we have. And I also noticed that the projects is almost at the fag end of that list. If you have to invest on the industrial or the economic prowess of Auroville, perhaps some of the investment or the seed money should go towards the industrial belt, industrial zone of ours, and if we can create common spaces which are more like plug and play spaces, which would benefit the upcoming youth, the new ones who want to start up. Right now the cost, the entry point is too high for somebody to take a personal risk for the community's benefit. So if you can little bit got some attention to that, it will be great. And the second whole I want to bring to your notice is there is a lot of rumors in our midst that a lot of units are stealing Auroville's money and trying to fly out because they are on the moving out phase. Are there any attention being given to those because they are Auroville community money? Thank you.
You had sometimes to repeat the question because I had issues one by one. But I remember now it's like this.
Bucket size.
No, I start with another one. The
Communication and projects, first whole.
No, I start with the last one, projects.
The money being stolen.
The projects.
Okay.
No, then are four. The projects. What you saw is the graphic of what is depending from BCC service payments. But then we had to look into projects in another way, outside of the BCC. And has to be one big project like the Red Mountain or the Michael Bonke with the lake. This is what we are focusing on. Signing MOU agreements with IITs, IIMs. What we looking into startups, incubators, cannot be depending on the one very teeny city budget. We have to transcend. Otherwise, we are not moving from 3,000 people to 10,000 people. No makes sense, like you say. The bucket has changing, and the bucket has changing in capacity and how we call it. Then that project is part of another presentation. Then I resolve the problem of the projects. But I don't resolve, but the projects are in that way. Actually, Torquil that is missing here is the one who is managing, and it's in the 57, it's the first 3 points, the startups, incubators, moving on. The bucket, I think, is obviously. We move from the 22, 23, from 1,600 crores to 23, 24 to almost 1,700 crores for these 3,000 people. as you made your accounts and you did your mathematics, we need to go double. Then that is why we had to impulse projects. We had to bring dynamics into the economy. What you saw today is what Madam Secretary has clearly said. We cannot start to mount out all these things. We don't clean the house because we really were in the mess, extremely dirty. Now, the other question was, refresh my mind.
About the units which are trying to.
Not trying.
Yeah.
Not trying.
They are doing.
Say the word.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. There are rumors as of now.
No, there are no rumors. They are doing. They are doing.
Any measures to counter that?
Well, the measures is you are under the Ministry of Education, and it's very clearly point out what is Auroville for the Ministry of Education. It's one center for higher education. We have been moving our minds and our hearts and our physical body to make money, and exactly what was the purpose, not as collective, but as individually. You know that. And in the few years back until today, this dynamics has been increasing quite a lot. And it's not me or it's not us who has to take that decision. When Bergesigi is talking about the visas, he's talking about Aurovillian people with visas who came as willing servitors of the divine grace, of the divine, as Mother has pointed out, that if you come here just to make money and go away with the money, then the question is what you are doing here. Then it's, as we say, it's one thing about sincerity. And me, as many Aurovillians that I can tell you, is the karma yoga we are doing, is what we are showing that we had to do from now on. Anyone wants to say something else?
Daniel, I think the main reason why we are not moving forward in Auroville and growing is the pettiness of our consciousness. When I see the hilarious things like, okay, all that halabaloo which is made because some land is exchanged against some other land, and then that other land was sold for more, and then there is a difference, and then everybody is focused so much on that money. We have registered 3 days ago a piece of land which we bought, I mean privately, our Varuna team, for the hill area, and we paid 9 times as much as we paid for the neighboring piece 6 years ago. 6 years ago, if we would have purchased that piece, we would have got for nearly 10% of the amount what we paid now. We had made attempts to exchange land in the Matrimandir Lake area against Agni, where we offered land which value-wise, if you see what was the land there and what is in Agni, was 5 times the price of, but still the exchange even didn't go through. And everybody here is fixed so much on money. Here some money is lost, there some money is lost. What is the value of the crown to be finished? What is the value of a year of Auroville's development? Nobody, I hear that question. Everybody only says, here we spend too much money, here. Everybody is so much fixed on this money and rules and this and that. Where is the courage to build Auroville? This is all, the reason why we are where we are is because there is no enthusiasm, no courage to move forward. And if we lose a little bit here or there in terms of money, the value what we gain by finishing the crown, by finishing the Auroville development, is much, much more. We are stuck now for 50 years and not moving any forward because we are all focused so much on this fellow has done that, this fellow has done that, here we have lost that, here we paid a little bit too much. This all we have to give it up and really move forward.
Due to the very little time we have, please let's move on to the next presentation. And if you have more questions, please raise your hand, we'll give papers. So we call upon Sindhuja to talk about brief development activities.
So we are coming to the most interesting part of the presentation of the evening at the end, if I can say so myself. It's about the actual physical development of Auroville city. As you all know, in the last 2 years, we have only been focusing on implementing the crown because we had to deal with a stay order on construction, but we didn't waste time. We have spent all that time in developing the projects that needed to be developed. Some we have developed them in-house by our own initiative. Some we have received as projects from outside, from residents, from other entities, and we have processed them and approved them. There are various stages of implementation. I will try to run through this fast because I think we're at the end of our evening. Please go to the next slide. Zonal development plans. I won't linger too long on this except to say that we have been speaking about development plans, detailed development plans. We've been looking at different names for the same thing. Also, not just over the last 2 years, but we've been speaking about this over decades. Actually, the biggest work we've done in the last 2 years is to pull out everything that has been done in the past during the time that Roger was still there, and some studies which were done after. We have compiled them, studied them in its compliance to the galaxy, to the master plan, and at one point decision has to be taken as to this is the final plan and this is how we move forward. And there are some areas where the plans are very, very detailed, like the city center, the entire part of the city which is within the crown has been done in a very detailed way with floor area ratios, building footprint, building heights, detailed road networks, pathways for infrastructure. All of this has been detailed and approved by Roger already. They only had to be taken out and adapted to the current survey maps and contexts in terms of land ownership, etc. So this is not a small work, but we have taken it up and we have now come to the very last stretch of completing the zonal development plans. So I will just run you through the 4 zones for those of you who don't know how the layout of Auroville city looks. Please go to the next slide. This is the international zone. I start with the international zone because very little importance is given to the zone, but it is one of the most important zones to develop in Auroville. In fact, in the 1972 master plan, Roger has demarcated the international zone as the first pole of development and the cultural zone as the second pole of development. Interestingly, not the economic zone and the residential zone, but he has said that the poles of growth will be from the international zone and the cultural zone. So international zone is also one of those controversial zones where a lot of discussions and studies and zonal groups and whatnot have given their opinion over the last years, but no conclusion or approval has been taken. So now we are at the point where we have compiled all this data. We have also been working with memory information available with Jacqueline and Anupama. And we are at a point where we will be presenting this for a final approval shortly in a few weeks. Next. Next is the cultural zone. Cultural zone which comprises of the schools from primary, middle to higher education. Some formal, some not so formal, and the sub-zonal plans and the geometry of roads and everything have been detailed out during the time of Roger himself. So now we are trying to see. Also, it's good to mention that somehow, because these plans had not gotten formalized and there were differing opinions on how to develop Auroville, a lot of TDCs in between seem to have given permissions for things which should not be where they are today. So unfortunately, some relocation, some movement will have to happen over the years, but it is not immediately planned in the first phase. However, it's good to know that now if we freeze these zonal plans, development will happen strictly in accordance with this, permissions will be given strictly in accordance with this, and it's high time we did this. Please go to the next. The residential zone, of course, comprising of 5 sectors. The lowest sector near R10, radial 10, which is near Gaia, going all the way to the international zone, which is near the visitor center. The highest density is at sector 5 near the visitor center, and the lowest density is in sector 1. Next. The industrial zone, the zone that's probably been least worked upon over the last few decades. Some very basic studies on current land use pattern has been done, but not much concrete work had been done in terms of calculation of footprint and number of floors that is allowed to be built. Also, it's important to remember the industrial zone has 3 major Odai Porambok running through it. So the galaxy footprint had to be adapted to these Odai Poramboks, which are natural features where we cannot build. So some adjustments had to be made. So we are also working on these and should be finalized shortly. Next. The last little bit is the city center administration and habitat area. And as I said before, the area within the crown has been the most detailed. So you will see a lot of development which has happened has been in consonance with this detailed plan already. For example, Inspiration, Sunship, Mitra, Citadine, all of these developments, Town Hall, Foundation Building, all the buildings along that strip, all of this has been done according to the detailed plans which were already available. So we will just have to continue in that direction. Next. The parks, another undetailed part of the city has been the parks of Auroville. We know that there are 4 parks, but they do come together in the city center, which is the melting pot of the 4 zones. And the parks don't have rectangular or radial-like boundaries. They follow the footprint which will be defined by the studies which were done under Roger's guidance, or directly the galaxy footprint in areas where we don't have subsequent studies. And the parks will be the negative spaces between built forms. So as per the master plan, we have 164 acres of parks. So we will be respecting the area of parks precisely to that, or even allocate a bit more area to the parks in the city, but the shape of the parks will follow the built forms, and the gardens which will surround the built forms. Next. Going to run you through the projects next. These projects have been developed in-house, or we have taken them up for detailed planning and implementation. The first project is Town Hall. Next. Actually, go back one. You can see actually, this is how the smattering of development is happening right now in Auroville. We are trying to develop some in industrial zones, some service nodes, some in the city center, and different typologies of projects will also be shown now. So we are not only focusing on housing or only focusing on industries, but there is quite a mix of projects which we have tried to develop and also receive from outside. Go to the next, please. The town hall building, which was designed by Roger and then detailed by Anupama Kundu in 2005, 2006, and now we have taken it up for detailed design and working drawings. This will be built with government grants. It will be right next to the Akur building, which we now call Town Hall. And it will house much more offices and much more spaces for meetings and administration. It has a rooftop amphitheater along with a basement amphitheater, which are all meant to be interactive spaces for Auroville's growth, which is envisaged over the next few years. Next, please. Habitat, it's a housing project next to Citadine. It will be built also in 2 phases. So there are 4 sectors in the habitat area. We are focusing on sector C and sector D, which are the last 2 sectors, which are towards Maison des Jeunes after Citadine. So it will house roughly 350 people, this project. They are apartments, low rise, G+2, G+3 apartments. Next. Siru, which is developed right next to the lake. Actually, these are conceptual plans. This project is still in the preliminary design stage. The project team, the Siru project team, have detailed out the first part of Siru, which is the keyhole building, and they have applied for grants. So that's where the project is at. Next, please. The vocational training area, which is also in the city center. You can see the red rectangle here on the right in the map. That's where the project will be located. It consists of spaces for the youth of Auroville and the world. There will be research spaces, labs, classrooms, auditoriums, spaces for gathering, spaces for studies. So this is also a project which we have asked for government funds, and hopefully in the next quarter we can start to detail it out. Next. We've been working on the first and smallest line of force in the residential zone, the line of progress, which is next to progress, which is in progress all the way to the outer ring road. It's in progress, Joseba says. He lives there. And this project is also in the preliminary design stage. We have to find funds for it. Right now, we don't have funds readily available for housing, but there are schemes which the Auroville Foundation is investing to find out whether we can, take it forward within those schemes to fund housing projects, as opposed to currently only when people come and bring in their own capital funds, they've been able to build housing. We don't want to do that because it will take forever to build. We want to be able to build big and then provide housing to new people who come into Auroville. So those schemes are also being explored, including loans from HUDCO and whatnot. And these three projects I already presented: Habitat and Line of Progress, and one more project in Sector 1 which is coming, are the three projects which will fall under these schemes as and when we are ready to avail them. Next, please. New Birth, it's also in Sector 1. You can see where it's located. To give you a context of where it's located, on the map above, you can see the word Sofio. So it's right around Sofio. To the south, there's Invocation, Arati, and basically it fits right into the niche there, where right now it's just a bunch of dens, a bunch of sparse buildings set amidst big gardens. So actually the aim also from this planning exercise is Sector 1 and 2 is supposed to house together 5,000 people. Right now there are 750 people living in Sector 1 and 2. And they occupy large tracts of land because we have the luxury of space. But actually this project aims at cohesively bringing these communities which are isolated from each other, fenced off actually, together with a development that will provide for social infrastructure also. So from Surrender, Invocation, Sofio and Maduka to the east, people will have to come here for common dining, common kitchen. So this is actually a kind of a project which brings those communities together. Next. This is Daniel still there? Yes, this is the project I called you to my office for 2 years ago. So we have gone further with it. It's the food court project in the southern service node. And you see where it is located there. That's actually where the Kuilapalayam road comes and we turn into Certitude today. Instead, what we will do, we'll keep on the tar road and we will enter Auroville now from the southern service node. And there's a two-prong approach. One is for visitors, where you see those solar carports, which are proposed partly for residents to park their car permanently there with security. So no longer, after this is developed, we'll be able to bring our private cars to our doorstep as we're doing now. There has to be a shift in mobility in Auroville at one point. So we will be looking at public transport which takes people from here to Auroville to the residential zones, or private e-vehicles which can be taken from the parking lot to the doorsteps. And the building which you see behind those carports and on the left, that's the building which houses kitchens, restaurants, boutiques, cafes. It's basically a big food court building which will cater to both residents and to visitors who come to Kuilapalayam area. Right now the whole Kuilapalayam area is clogged with eateries, traffic, parking, whatnot. In the weekends you can hardly go from Auroville to Kuilapalayam without losing half an hour. So now that we are providing all of this in one setup, we'll be contacting the eateries on the road. Some of them have already expressed interest to move. This project will be built with government funds, and the detailed structural design is ongoing, so we are almost at tender stage. So you'll be getting a call from us very soon. Next. This is the part of the Southern Service Node project, the Southern Outer Ring Road, which goes from the service node, which is hatched with lines like this, all the way to where you see R5, that's where the visitors parking is today, and how visitors reach the visitors parking is through the Ede and Chavadi village. So the narrow roads of Ede and Chavadi are clogged with Auroville's visitor traffic today. So there's children on the road and it creates a very unsafe atmosphere. So this road, could you go back one? Yeah, this road which you see makes a slight detour from R6 to somewhere before R5 because we don't own some lands there. So it's a very temporary, it's a paved road. So the paver will be moved later when we purchase those lands. But this access will take visitors directly from the single point entry at Southern Service Node all the way to the visitors parking. And the Ede and Chavadi village will no longer be a way to enter Auroville visitors parking. That will be closed. Next. So those are the projects developed in-house and we are detailing it and working with CPWD for some of them to give us support for construction and drawings. And this list of projects is proposed by residents and a few projects here is proposed directly by Auroville Foundation and done by CPWD architects. The first one, next please. La Petite Épicerie, it's City Center Portus, City Center PTDC, which is in the almost pre-construction stage. They're ready to break ground. I think there is funds also available, so administratively some things have to be figured out for this to come. It's in the node between Sunship and Mitra, where the services of the habitat area are planned. Next please. This is Kalpana Sports Center. And there'll be a swimming pool and some sports facilities here, some spa, some gym. And it's coming just opposite Kalpana, behind the Crown landscape work which is going on right now. Some of you may be wondering what that is, that landscape stretch opposite Kalpana which is being done, which was designed and is being implemented by CPWD. This is just behind that. Next. The Matrimandir Lake, of course, Michael presented it in detail. It's ongoing and we are working with them to refine the boundaries, to refine the buffer zone between the northern buildings and the lake edge, etc., etc. Next. Matrimandir service compound, the workshops which are inside Matrimandir will have to move out at one point because there's nothing inside Matrimandir except Matrimandir and the petals. So these services and workshops will move to the administrative belt. The administrative belt is the town hall foundation belt, which is an arc just abutting the lake. So this proposal has come from the Matrimandir team and we have given our first preliminary design approval. Next. Mother's Flower Garden. I presented the parks before, so this is one of the first projects which will be detailed, implemented in one of the 4 parks, the Mahalakshmi Park. A part of the Mahalakshmi Park has been given to the Mother's Flower Garden team to create a landscape with Mother's Flowers. We all know the work they are doing. And the second park project which is going to be undertaken by Louis and team is behind Citadine, the Bliss Park area, City Center Park it's called. That will be taken up as one of the sample parks. Next please. The staff quarters project, it's a project of the Auroville Foundation for staff, people appointed by the Auroville Foundation. Actually I have to say that this project is one of the ways that the foundation is offered to create housing in Auroville. We have quite a lot of units which are proposed from type 2 to type 6. And if those units are empty, they can of course be used by people in Auroville, volunteers on short-term contracts. So it's a way to create places to stay for people who come and join Auroville New. Next. Sorry, go back one. Just to tell you that this project will be in sector 2 of the residential zone, which is one of the zones we are densifying now. Next. Swagatam Guest House Annex, also a project done and prepared by CPWD. It's annexed to the guest house of Swagatam in the international zone. Next. Utsav 1B miniature in the industrial zone, basically a factory, a boutique and an office complex, a production space for miniature. Next. Morning Star Women's Wellness Center, also in the detailed design stage. So once they submit the detailed design, we'll be giving approval for them to break ground. The project is almost ready. It is also just behind Sante in the city center. Next. And lastly, the crown, which is being, the first phase of it is being completed right now by CPWD. It comes up to 2.552 kilometers. And the second phase of the crown road portion will be the Darkali, the bridge area, which will go over the Porambok. And the remaining portion of the crown, which comes to about 1 kilometer, 982 meters, will be done by Aurovillians. Actually, it will be funded by Michael Bonke, and it will be done with Michael Bonke and a team of Aurovillians who have taken up the project. They've offered that they would like to do it themselves, and we had several meetings where the feasibility of this was explored. So this 1 kilometer stretch will be done by us, basically. And what you're looking at here is the two sides of the road. Even though a big portion of the crown will be lined with buildings, especially on the inner side, there's a whole line of crown service buildings. For the moment, we will not see those buildings coming up very fast. So instead of leaving the sides just with earth and some thorny bushes, some landscape intervention could be undertaken. And also the foundation had initiated this project, but Michael is currently heading it, along with taking up the 1 kilometer stretch. So these are some design proposals which have come, and it's in a very preliminary concept stage, and this has to be taken further. Next. Upcoming projects, please go. Crown Road Phase 2, I just mentioned it. The radial roads, we have cleared the roads, the road portion, and we are waiting to call the tender to build these roads after the Model Code of Conduct period is finished. The western, northern and eastern service nodes after the southern service node will also come in accordance with the master plan, and it will change the entire mobility pattern in Auroville. Along with this, we will also be taking up a project of biofencing or partly truly fencing the Auroville city. The aim of this is to first curtail the number of entrances into Auroville, which are right now I think somewhere around 28, which is quite a lot, and they're uncontrolled entrances. So we would like to make only 4 entrances in these 4 service nodes if possible, if the Poramboks are acquired by then. And the second is the internal fences that we see between our neighboring communities and our own communities, they will all be removed, or at least they can be removed in big chunks. So all this Sector 1, Sector 2 and Industrial Zone, they will be connected to each other as it was always meant to be, and not fenced off developments which are isolated from each other. And fecal sludge treatment plant, which will be on the eastern side of Residential Zone Sector 1 and 2, and water infrastructure for Residential Zone Sector 1 and 2, which will be more formal than the kind of water infrastructure we have now, which is old and needs updating. So this will be studied now and done properly with government grants. So I end my presentation with this. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Sindhuja. It's very impressive, the kind of work your team managed to do. But I have one question. It is about the Crown Road starting from the library all the way to Mahalakshmi home. Why those trees were cut? I'm not a sentimental person. I don't care about sentimental values. But those trees were of spiritual value. And we already placed the road.
The right of way of the crown will be cleared at one point. I think you were in TDC with me, so you know this very well. The whole right of way, which means the road plus where the infrastructure will go, either in service trenches or directly in the ground, will have to be cleared. And actually the master plan gives us 24 meters in section as the right of way, but we have been working with much less because we all want to cut as less trees as possible, right? So we have been working with trying to reduce the right of way as much as possible. But today or tomorrow, the crown, the trees on either side of the crown which are close to the road will have to go to make space for infrastructure. And in their place, much more trees will be planted where they're supposed to be planted. As I presented, there's 164 acres of parks just in the city. and 3,000 odd acres of land in the greenbelt that we're supposed to plant over. So where the roads have to come, where the infrastructure have to come, they have to come.
I understand the road is already there, the service trench is already there. These trees are outside of.
That's not the only service trench which will come. This is just the phase 1 of the road portion. If you look at the section of the crown, which is public record actually, if you go on Auroville, past 11 years have published it already. The road, the right-of-way width was reduced to 16.7 meters after a lot of negotiation. Right now what we are building is 8.65 meters, including the stormwater drain on the side. So it's not, and we didn't cut all that we need to cut. We're actually now, we have decided only to cut what we need to cut. But today or tomorrow, you need to understand that where the trees have to go, they will have to go. But it will be done with thought. It will not just be taken out because some people like to take out trees. It's not like that. Where they have to go only, we'll go and cut, no?
Sindhuja, when I came and asked you where I plant this supramental action, you gave me the distance.
Yes.
And I planted it.
Yes.
And these trees are also of the same distance.
No, the trees which you planted are near youth center.
Yes.
You are now asking me about the trees near Kalpana.
Yeah, I'm talking about the distance is same.
No, the distance is not the same. The tree that you planted near youth center is first of all on the outer side of the ground. And the distance I gave you are not the distance in which the trees in Kalpana have been cut. If you go measure and you find otherwise, you let me know.
Good guys, good that with your intelligence you have covered all the portion within half an hour of time. The so-called common people need more time to understand. When you make next presentation, so you just only question in between you two people now. So I think next time when you put a presentation on all these future projects and all, at least a day is required to understand you people. Make it as not only that you people, FAMC, and one is missing from SIA. I don't see any presentation from education side. The next time we make it, it will be so nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah. First, Sindhuja, a small correction. It's a bit misleading to say that the Crown now is financed by Michael Bonke. We have a whole team, and even the finances we are trying to get together and all that. It's not everything is a one-man show. It's we are a team and we are doing it together. Now for the trees cutting. The main root of many mistakes which have been made, and I consider the cutting of these service trees a mistake there, is that trees have become a political instrument in a completely mad civil war here in Auroville, where trees are being used to prevent a project. And that leads to the attitude that if one can, then prophylactically we'll cut the trees not to have later on a problem. And this whole thing of right of way, which was defined, and in the master plan it's 24 meter and all that, we have anyway reviewed that, and we have come to the conclusion that now for the Crown we cut, if at all required, only the 7 meter carriage and the 2 meter or 1 meter 80 ducts, and we don't cut any trees for the right of way anymore, and for the radials we do only 7 meter, and when it comes to the point that we lay the infrastructure cable, then we see where we lay it, and then if a tree really has to be cut, then we cut it. But this attitude that trees become a political instrument, that we should give up.
Any more questions?
Yeah, my question is about outer ring road clearance, especially in the southern side. I went there and I saw that the existing tar road is very close to the, let's say, to the clearing. So I wonder, can it be combined? What is the disadvantage versus the advantage? You couldn't get two roads at 50-meter distance.
Yes, the shortest distance between those two roads is actually 56 meters, Unfortunately, the mobility consideration doesn't allow for these two roads to be combined because the residential zone is the most dense zone and actually the most interesting to become porous from the outside. It's much more easy to contain the international zone and the cultural zone with existing regional roads. But the residential zone and the industrial zone being the densest sectors, the densest zones, need to be contained by our own controllable, from the security point of view, internal roads. So this buffer strip between now what is our road and the regional road can be addressed in two ways. One is we could plan the social infrastructure development of those sectors outside of this strip, because the master plan is silent on where that social infrastructure should go. So one could push it to the extreme and we could nicely make use of this. Or from the regional perspective, this road actually, the tar road there is actually on Auroville lands. It's not Porambok, just that strip which we are speaking about right now. So Auroville had at one point given these lands to the state to make a regional road for whatever reason they saw fit. This road is still viable to be shifted all the way down below Evergreen and cut straight across. So where you turn at the Abri corner, the road could continue straight and catch the Edian Chavadi village. It has no reason to cross all of our green belt and then make a loop through Edian Chavadi village and come out. So this is a negotiation from the regional planning perspective that we will have to have at some point. Now we are not there yet because we are busy with all this, but it is a consideration that we have taken, that this is a possibility and it should be explored thoroughly.
So I think due to we're crossing the time, so I think Lakshay, if you can write it in a paper, it will be great. So I think we have to move on, where we call upon Secretary Madam to address the community.
Once again, good evening everybody. It's been a long evening. I only want to say a very big thank you to all of you for being here and all the team members for being here. I think with this kind of an atmosphere where we are all patiently open to listening to each other and sorting things out, everything can be done. As Savitri says, all can be done if the God touch is there. And I think this is a manifestation of that touch. I really want to appreciate all of you. There can be any point of view, but if it is discussed in this kind of an atmosphere where we are open to listening to different points of view and patiently also want to hear what is it that people working on this, their constraints, concerns, challenges, and also factor in, maybe there are definitely there are good suggestions. So in that spirit, I want to again thank all of you. And yes, as Anbu mentioned, as Daniel also pointed out, this is not going to be the only such session. As promised earlier, we want to make this at least a monthly space available where we can share, because believe me, there's a lot of work that our teams are doing literally 24/7. And if you are also there with us, and you have to participate. When the team led by Michael Bonke, it was not him alone, but quite a few of you came forward and said that you would be willing and able to do the crown, the part that is remaining. I think from all of us, Goel Sahab, all of us were absolutely delighted beyond words, because I don't think the government or any of us is keen that we want to push all this and make it happen. We're here as a catalyst, as a facilitator, but yes, if things just don't move after days and months and years of conversation, a point comes where you have to start the process, initiate the process. But ultimately, it's for all of us. And again, endless discussions, deliberations, debates. I think we have to realize that we are here on a mission to make her dream. None of us, I think, on the table or on the dais here were a part of the process that led to the formulation of the master plan. So in that sense, we don't claim any contribution that we have made for making the master plan when it was made in 1999. But yes, it is something that was handed down to us. I don't know, maybe one or two of you may have been there. But for us, this is something sacrosanct. It's something that's been handed over with the stamp and seal of the residents of Auroville, the governing board and Government of India. And it's with that spirit of sincerity that we want to see her dream, her vision manifest here, and we really look forward to all of you participating. As Anbu said, there's also some wonderful work that's happening in many other fields. To name a few, Sire, I think we've had several rounds. These are historical things. There is a gentleman called Praveen Kapoorji, Pashi's brother. He's been with the ashram playground for many years. They're working, the team at Sire has put together a full plan on how to have physical education available for all the residents, for all the children of Auroville in a beautiful way. Sire has had integral education immersion, which was attended by a whopping majority out of 372 facilitators, teachers. I think other than 15, Anton is also here. They all attended, and when they completed the week-long training, they went back with a great shift in terms of their own commitment to integral education, because I think all these, according to me, are small indications that we're all collectively definitely moving ahead. Similarly, many things, small or big, the dog shelter, there's so many things which are taking a very good shape. And I think, and also what is happening on the FAMC front, Daniel, there's a lot of scope. We're also having partnerships. IIT Madras is coming here to set up a full Auroville IIT sustainability campus. So there, Lakshay, the startups, the whole kind of money that will get invested in that would be upward of 1,000 crores. And it will also be one of the biggest sustainability startup hubs where Aurovillians too will have some special incentive to participate. There's a possibility of a medical college which we're going to do with JIPMER and the only institute of national importance in India for Ayurveda together. So I mean, there are many things like this, but on a monthly basis, if we have such a forum where all of us can meet, I think we would love, for example, in this integral medical education college, Martin of Sanskrit Research, what is his full name? Martin Gluckman. He's very keen because he's a great supporter of Ayurveda and integral. So he's been sort of very actively participating, and several others in Auroville. So there are many such things which are happening. There's a whole naturopathy team which is working on having an institution here with the Phoenix, there's a university in Arizona with them. So there are many such things which are on the cards. So I'm very glad that this is happening, and again want to, on behalf of all of us, thank you, and also offer our immense gratitude to Mother and Sri Aurobindo for actually allowing us, giving us the special privilege of being in a place where we may still sometimes feel that we're getting a little bogged down by some rules, some minimum restrictions, but that's the minimal. But believe me, once those little railings are put, we have the sky as not the limit, but as the beginning to really do what we have to do to be a real beacon, a lighthouse for the whole of humanity. And my only request is, in this spirit, let's come, let's talk, let's move forward. And on the visa front too, I had a conversation earlier today. I see Frederick sitting there. I personally also mentioned all these cases. Koshi Saab will follow it up. We are also concerned that there are some cases where visas have expired. From our side, we really want to open this up, make this available as seamlessly and as easily as possible for all our people. But yes, we have to move forward, and in that spirit, may we end with a bit of silence, a few moments of silence. Thank you very much.